Hello everyone, my name is Francis Chia Hui Lin. Today I'm going to present my paper entitled The Heritagisation of Socio-Spatiality, Preliminary Observations on Asia Today. It is generally agreeable that the visual environment registers not only material overtones, but also social implications that indicate a broader sense of the cultural politics. The formal aspect suggests tangible values, and the latter implies intangible ones. This intricate relationship between the natural and human environments has witnessed the notion of heritage. In the current state, digital technology and computerization are leading media that translate this implication of heritagisation. However, this transition renders problematic for architecture theory, as the notion of society is never reflected thoroughly by the technology alone, but with essentially the immaterial meaning registered within. This paper argues that the virtuality suggested by digital architecture has no difference from the virtuality of discourse, speaking for spatial abstractness within the same context of heritagisation. Architecturally, one of the leading media that reflects the theoretical grounding related to heritagisation is the movement of digitalism. Theorizations of digital architecture started from an intention of assisting design operations to reducing physical spaces into abstract models, now start to engage in searching how human society influences architecture design and vice versa. This concern reveals the problematics between the physical and visual built environments and their abstract models. This paper intends to analyze such a concern with building up a more consolidated and less explosive theory that the problematics of abstractness implied by digitization can be further addressed. In this paper, along with contemporary urban Asia's dominant and visual impression that associates with the digital imagery, hence a critical review of digital architecture within the context overseeing the developing trend of contemporary architecture theory with discursive elaboration of heritagisation that integrates both the tangible and intangible view form is proposed. Methodologically, this study starts from a critical review of digitization as a theorization involved in architecture theory. The concern with society and its registration in spatiality next is analyzed as a point of heritagisation in contemporary built environments in which empirical built Asian case studies are done, therefore, to elaborate and consolidate the argument. This argumentation is based on a series of thoughts observed from the theoretical development of both the human geographies and digital architecture that forms an inductive analytic model, which, when compared to the common deductive model, attempts to moderate the crisis caused by the dominant epistemology of tourism. The notion of heritage originally referred to the concept of physical assets received, now is culturally perceived as an idea that is inevitably tied to that of potential loss or disappearance. Heritagisation happens when the presence of historicity and representation is addressed. Thus, the intrinsic essence of heritagisation is semiotically twofold. One registers the central and universal signified, and the other displays a variety of timely and geopolitical scenarios. To follow this trajectory of theorizing heritagisation, the immediate historicity of the digital age, nowadays gives us a strong lead to understand how architecture is represented with an Asian package and what the intrinsic essence behind this package is. Digitization started to be largely noticed during the late 20th century as a matter that affects many areas of architecture. However, the impact of the digital age on the practice and theorizations of architecture, particularly in terms of its representations conditioned by localities, materiality, and social reality, retains continuously as a concern in the state of the academic field for digitization's transition of architecture from a human-oriented product to become a seemingly neutral object. This concern is noticeable from a diachronic retrospect of the studies in recent decades. Saskia Sassen negates the concept that digitization will neutralize the human intrinsicacy of architecture and cities in her 2001 study. Anthony Picon proposes an argument for this interaction of architecture with digital technology as a new form of materiality in his 2004 study. Chu, from metaphysic perspective to observe the growth of the internet highlights an undeniable impact of computation on daily life, especially in terms of the implication in urbanism. Through the discursive development of digitization and its influence to the built environment, um, the neutral character of it has gradually been translated and recognized with the inevitable registration of human subjectivity. In architecture theory, which reflects this concern, virtuality should no longer be considered as a platform that hybridizes human and technological imagination, but an epistemological alternative of medieval metaphysics based in theology. In this sense, the technology of computational virtual reality and the philosophical concept of it that both grant meaning to the notion of virtuality become comparable and interlocked. I argue all these perspectives are centered around humanistic and empirical notion of heritage. As a summary of the above critical review, a series of hypotheses can be pointed based on the intertextuality mentioned. First, there's no doubt that digital technology and computerization are leading media. However, their epistemological meaning certainly transcends the superficial identification as tools only. Second, the registration of social reality is a pivotal necessity to deconstruct this naive preoccupation in architecture theory. Third, the indicator of such absence underscores the notion of society as being problematic for current theorizations of digital architecture. Fourth, this epistemological deconstruction is based on the construction of a more grounded and less volatile theory capable of dealing with such problematic situation in current scholarship. And finally, the virtuality suggested by digital architecture, in this sense, has no difference from the abstractness registered in architecture as the articulation with social and cultural political discourses. The above hypothesis therefore suggests the exhibitory social formation, which can be critically regarded as a form of relative space. Karl Marx once argued, the expression of abstract human labor implies an abstraction of domination. Henry Lefebvre rephrases such statement with speciality. Lefebvre argues that representational spaces have already disappeared in social space, a product of society which organizes the epistemological thought to construct the so-called abstract space. In the contemporary context of the Asia-Pacific region, one schema of such abstract space with the sense of special identification is the phenomenal Apple flagship store, which strategically uses a simplified and transparent special enclosure to concentrate a focus on the collected but temporary and materially changeable commercial products inside and to draw the public attention to them without being obstructed by the definition of space. In short, abstract space is characterized as a semiotic form of relative space, which the matter of time becomes ephemeral when its symbols are sensible and visual. This setting of the Apple flagship store mentioned above as a symbol of the abstract space mutates into another rather localized symbol when its social and cultural politics is perceived from a specific representation of materiality. For example, the quotidian but pervasive convenience store in contemporary Asia can be regarded as one identifiable mutation. In Hong Kong, Culture and the Politics of Disappearance, Akbabas considers how Hong Kong, with its phenomenal association with Asia's postcoloniality, expresses insight into the future of a city that is shaped by both globalism and a broader sense of colonialism by an abstract form of space. It is my argument that this theorization is suggestive of many Asian built phenomena and urban sites which are integrated by not only a broader sense of postcolonial historicity, but also the characterized abstract space analyzed above. The space of disappearance, which is um, synonymous with the presence of Hong Kong's representational locality in Arba's argumentation, is theorized as resulting from developing techniques of internationalization, modernization, and urbanization. Hong Kong, seen as a subject of space, when it is interrelated to characteristics of speed and abstraction, this speciality, characterized by ephemerality, most importantly, is analogically digital. And arguably, this digital imagery is very Asian. Just as the virtual space created through digitization, the ephemeral space emerges in Hong Kong is referred to be the abstract character of Hong Kong's social and cultural political condition. Here, I would use the notion displayness to extend Arba's exemplification of the abstract space in Hong Kong to an allegorical carrier of the Asian postcoloniality that architecturally suggests not only the external form but also the one from within. Practically, phenomenal sites in contemporary Asia that temporarily mobilize people who are not officially affected by the setting of their physical spaces, such as the ticket hall of the Taipei main station in Taiwan, in which showcases mobilization of foreign workers during the weekends, can be examples that echo Abba's theorization of Hong Kong. This abstract discipliners observed from it, especially therefore shapes and shapes an atmosphere of a unique yet intangible enclave. In contemporary Asia, its virtuality, or what can be regarded as the Asian spectacle, that implies both a sense of digital development in architecture and the inner spatial structure of society, is traceable from certain representations, such as the geopolitics of instrumentality that reflects the political economic dispositive, and the historicity of quotidian urbanism that registers the materialization of a particular space-time interaction, which both exemplify contemporary Asia's heritagisation of social spatiality. The former phenomenon is examinable from an observation of the escalator transit of the KLCC station in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The instrumentalist placement of infrastructure at an international and modern level has suggested a strong sense of virtuality that geopolitically shapes the immediate historicity of Kuala Lumpur with a neutral, technological, and even digital pace. The materialization of the hawker center in Singapore can be seen as a form of homology with the latter phenomenon. In Singapore, hawker culture as a form of the immediate historicity today not only reflects the quotidian urbanism that echoes the intangible virtuality valued by the authorities, but also arguably, even more obviously identifies the materialization of such virtuality into tangible spaces, namely through kopitiam, coffee shops, the street hawker centers, and various food courts. In the presence of this day and age, which is characterized by both the development of advanced technology and profound human civilization, the notions of materiality and territory have inevitably been deconstructed and then reconstructed. Architecturally, the evidence of such phenomenon can be seen from the discursive emergence of virtuality, no matter whether from a standpoint of digitization or from one that stands philosophically. The focus of the conventional understanding of spatial virtuality, no matter whether it is theorized under philosophical context of one of digitization, was on mainly the simplification of space into concept of ideologies. It is my argument that through the recontextualization of such notion with a context of heritagisation, virtuality can be semiotically re-emphasized to be both the form and meaning of contemporary society that are represented in various ways. The heritagisation of social spatiality observed in Asia pinpoints a crucial element, the cultural politics of the everyday, that was absent from technological-oriented attentions of digital architecture at the very beginning. As a methodological and integral premise in this paper, society is seen as a core unit of analysis rather than as a sum of individuals, communities, or organizations. The problematics of this study, therefore, come particularly from the observation on a display and experience and the fundamental unit of analyzing human environments with preliminary observations on Asia today. The concern with heritagisation, in conclusion, I argue, can be regarded as a strategic platform that integrates such aspects into a whole. And that's my presentation today. Thank you for your attention.